We're working to make sure that our air traffic system is optimized and as efficient as possible. We're flying optimum routes, where our flight departments are accredited as sustainable flight departments. So we are working very hard, pouring tons of money into research and development and working to create this net zero environment. And so that's what Climbing Fast is. We're climbing fast on our mission to net zero. We're climbing fast while we're creating jobs and economic development, flying humanitarian flights. So we're doing something really important, really exciting, and we're encouraging people to proudly say that they're part of this business aviation community that is climbing fast, that is on a mission to net zero.
Hello and welcome to the Business Aviation Collective podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. I'm your host, Lindsay Dyer, and today we get a chance to talk to Ed Bolen, who is the president and CEO of the National Business Aviation Association and has been in that position for almost the last 20 years. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So glad you were able to take some moments and speak with us, because I know you're a wealth of knowledge and very well known in the industry, both on the commercial side and the business aviation side. I looked through your history a little bit and I see you have a law background. Looks like that's where you did a lot of your formal schooling.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer by training, but have not really practiced law with a major law firm. I did work on Capitol Hill and was very fortunate to be legislative director and general counsel to a senator from Kansas named Nancy Kassebaum, who served from 1978 through 1996. I was with her for about a 6-year period in the early 90s, and just had the opportunity to be on Capitol Hill and be involved in a lot of different policy issues, including aviation issues. So that was my fortunate entree into the aviation industry.
Interesting. Okay, so do you remember what some of those early initiatives were that you worked on?
Well, the big initiative for the senator and really for the entire general aviation industry was something called the General Aviation Revitalization Act. It was initially introduced in 1986. It took about 8 years to pass it. We finally got it passed in 1994. Wow. But a situation where manufacturers, going back to Cessna, Beechcraft, Piper, anytime there was an aviation accident, they would sue the manufacturer and say the plane was poorly designed or poorly manufactured. And the reality is many of these planes had been flying around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, when the manufacturers went into a lawsuit, they would win, but they would spend $500,000 proving that a plane they built 30 years ago and for a small amount of money was well designed and well manufactured. So ultimately, the senator proposed, and it became law, that if a plane has been introduced into the marketplace and has been flying and being used for 18 years, then you can't go back and sue the manufacturer for a bad design or a bad manufacturing, because the aircraft's very durability proves that it was well designed and well manufactured. So that was the important legislation that I had the opportunity to work on very closely with many of the people in the general aviation industry.
That is so cool. So that's really just what started out aviation interest for you.
Yes, I over those years working with the senator, I had an opportunity to go to Kansas a lot, being with a lot of the manufacturing companies, the CEOs, go to Olathe, Kansas, meet with the avionics companies, and really be immersed in the industry, the number of jobs it creates, the economic development it creates, the humanitarian flights it does, the way it helps people become face to face, which I think is really something that's really at the heart of every culture, every civilization on every continent.
Yeah, that's so cool. So then from there, how did you transition into NBAA?
Well, I initially went to work as the senior vice president and general counsel of the General Aviation Manufacturers Association. I was there for 2 years and then became the president of Gamma, and ultimately went from the president and CEO of Gamma to the president and CEO of NBAA in 2004.
Sure, that skill is really transferable. What a cool thing. When we talk to other guests on this podcast, we talk about talent shortage and how to get into the industry. But I really think that we should highlight the fact that you didn't come into the industry like many of us with aviation on the mind. You didn't come into your working career. And I think that's really important to highlight because we can find people for the aviation industry that are coming from careers in all sorts of other industries. Like you did lawyer, you can have a marketing person come in. I think it might be important to highlight that you don't have to have an aviation background to still excel in this industry.
I think that's really important, Lindsay, and I think that gets overlooked. A lot of times when people talk about jobs in aviation, everybody involved is thinking about pilots, technicians, and people specific to the flying aspect, when in reality, there are people involved in finance, law, insurance, marketing, graphic design, communications, journalism. There's a million different ways to be involved in aviation. And the one thing that's great about it is the people in the aviation industry are passionate, they're committed, they care about each other. You'll quickly find yourself part of a community. And it's an exciting field to be in. Over the years, I've seen so many people who have come to aviation through, different companies, different industries, and wherever they're from. Once they get in aviation, they don't leave. So when people come and they're always very passionate about, well, I was in the hospitality industry or the automotive industry, whatever it is, then they're here and see there's something really special about this industry, and more importantly, the people who are in it.
That's very true. It's such a small community. It's a large community, but really small. I mean, you really get to know people throughout your career. I had one podcast guest tell me that she estimated there were 800 different jobs that are attached to aviation.
I would think there are at least 800 jobs that are
right. Yeah. So you're right. We focus on that pilot, flight attendant, scheduling section, but there's a ton of other options. Well, just continuing on that whole vein of talent shortage, where do you see us in another, 2 or 3 years with talent shortage? Do you think that's going to get better or stay as is?
Well, I think a lot of it will be dependent on our ability to tell our story and to be able to meet people where they are. So obviously, when you look at aviation, including business aviation, there are underrepresented communities where we clearly need to do a better job of reaching people where they are and making sure they're aware that there is this industry that is long on technology, long on community, long on experiences, long on professional development, totally net zero emissions. And that if those are the things that you are going to care about in your life, this is a great place for you to come, bring your authentic self, and go to work. And as you and I've discussed, whether it's in graphic design, marketing, sales, communication, finance, law, flying, anything about it, you're going to meet great people and you're going to be part of something really special that makes a difference in people's lives. So I think it's really incumbent on us to make sure people understand the types of opportunities that are available here and the kind of community that you can expect to be part of, where passion and commitment, service, sustainability, safety, all of these are going to be driving factors in your life.
So true. So very true. I live in a real small agricultural rural town, and our high school, I would say there's probably about a 0% chance that pretty much anybody knows anything about aviation. And so I have started to volunteer at the school and try and just show them the different options that there are out there to get into the industry. And I would say too, I think all of us that are in the industry, just like you're saying, tell our story. We need to go out and talk to our schools, our young people. And I know A lot of people say, yes, I can volunteer, or some people say, no, I'm too busy. But I feel like we all have that, what's the word? I want to say, like, it's almost an obligation for us to be going out there and talking to the young people and trying to get them into this industry. If we've been around and have a good story, we really should feel a bit obligated to go out.
Yeah, I think we're all very fortunate to be part of an industry that started with the Wright brothers. But since that time, so many inspiring, dedicated people have made aviation work for themselves, for their companies, for their communities, for their country. And it's really incredibly exciting and rewarding to be part of it. But you also feel you are part of something that is bigger than you. You're part of
Yeah.
something that others have helped build. And so I think to your point, it does feel that there's a responsibility to pass the baton and encourage others to be part of something that really is important, really is magnificent, but not always well understood. And
Yeah,
to realize that this is an incredible pathway.
definitely. I love that word. It's probably better on obligation. Responsibility sounds nicer. I got a chance to go to Vegas at base back in October, and I got a chance to see the opening speech that you did, and you talked about climbing fast. And
Mhm.
that's the new initiative for NBAA going forward. Can you tell us some more about that?
Well, business aviation is on a mission to net zero. We've made a public commitment to be at net zero by 2050. And I think it's really important for people to know that this is something we have been doing for a long time. Over the past 4 decades, we've reduced aircraft emissions by 40%. And every new model of aircraft is at least 30% more efficient than the model it is replacing. We have a long history of being at the front part, the incubator really of technology, sustainability technologies, including winglets on aircraft came from business aviation, composite technologies, satellite navigation. All of these things really started in our segment of the industry. And today, we are leaders in sustainable aviation fuel. Several years ago, we worked very hard to increase the awareness and the availability of sustainable aviation fuel.
Mm-hmm.
The country has made a commitment to creating 3 billion gallons by 2030. Congress has passed legislation to encourage investment. And so here's a point where we have an opportunity to reduce our net emissions by 80% with sustainable aviation fuel. And we're also promoting hybrid propulsion systems,
Mm-hmm.
electric propulsion systems, even hydrogen propulsion systems. We're working to make sure that our air traffic system is optimized and as efficient as possible. We're flying optimum routes where our flight departments are accredited as sustainable flight departments. So we are working very hard, pouring tons of money into research and development and working to create this net zero environment. And so that's what climbing fast is. We're climbing fast on our mission to net zero. We're climbing fast while we're creating jobs and economic development, flying humanitarian flights. So we're doing something really important, really exciting, and we're encouraging people to proudly say that they're part of this business aviation community that is climbing fast, that is on a mission to net zero.
So exciting. I just love all of the new possibilities that there are out there. You talked about the hybrid propulsion. I mean, it's really exciting. Some of that stuff, I think, is really going to catch the eye of the young people coming in. And I can't even wait to see what 20 years is going to bring, even 10 years.
Yeah, I've talked to several people in the industry, and all of us really believe that this is certainly the most exciting time in aviation since maybe the dawn of the jet age. If you look at what's happening now with advanced air mobility, even with the commercial space launches that are going on, and everything in between, is
Mm-hmm.
really exciting to see these breakthroughs in aeronautics and propulsion systems and new ways of manufacturing. And it gives us so many tools that we can provide the incredible benefits of aviation and mobility, bring people face to face, and do it in a way that builds on our track record of constantly being more efficient, more system. So it's a great time to be in aviation.
Yeah, it sure is. One of my questions that I wanted to ask you too was, what do you see changed from when you started with NBAA until now? I'm sure there's a lot of things, but any key things?
Well, I think the thing that is really important is how many different ways there are to be involved in business aviation. When I started, we talked about three classes of airplane: small, medium, large. Now the full line of single engine turbine aircraft and ultra long range and large cabin, and the speeds are all incredible in the aircraft themselves. But then there are also you can own all of an aircraft or a fraction of an aircraft.
Yeah.
Be part of a subscription company. You can, fly long range. You can take smaller aircraft. So that's really exciting to see all the new advances in aviation, both in terms of the technology of the aircraft itself and all the new pathways to avail yourself of those benefits. And the technology is incredible. We recently at Unity had an opportunity to celebrate aircraft that have a button in it where you can push a button and the aircraft will land itself. So it's all pretty see how far everything has come. And I think part of that is our industry is really looking forward with great anticipation, whereas maybe when I initially began, people looked backwards for the inspiration, said, well, what did we do in the 60s and the 70s? And what happened with the Apollo program? And now to be really excited about, all the different technologies that are shaping the way we will travel in the future.
That is so cool. I imagine that could be possibly part of your favorite part of the job, is just to see all of that stuff. But do you have a favorite part of your job?
The people, the people who make this happen. It's always incredible and inspiring to see people every level, all across the country, even across the world, and the dedication, the excitement, the passion. It's just so inspiring to meet people. And then, I have an opportunity to help tell their story before regulatory bodies, legislative bodies. And it's really exciting to know that behind every technology, every airport, every safe operation, there are people who are making this happen. And it's enormously inspiring to be part of this community.
I can only imagine how much fun it must be to meet all of these people, because every time I meet somebody new in this industry, I'm amazed that, that, like you said, everybody brings their piece to it and it just moves it all forward. That's awesome. And, thank you to you and NBAA as well for highlighting those, because I think we don't necessarily see them. We might just see the technology, but you guys highlight and give out awards to people who have gone above and beyond in the aviation industry. And really, that's one of the only ways that we can actually find out about them, unless maybe we were attached to that technology for some reason in general. But if we're kind of on the outskirts, we may never know about them. So I do love watching all the awards and highlights of people.
Yeah, that's part of, I think, a hallmark of NBAA, but certainly a hallmark of our industry, the aviation industry, that we celebrate legends and leaders, the technologies, but the people behind those technologies. And, it's, as I said before, really at every level. When you look at a company, for example, I had the amazing, great fortune of being able to present safety awards to companies that have been operating business aircraft safely for 50, 60, 70, 75 years. Yeah. Or if a company has been using business aviation to get people where they need to be, when they need to be there, and do it safely for 75 years. That's not technology. It's not one person. It is a culture of excellence where People come, they make contributions, and they leave everything better than they found it. And that's why those types of records are incredible. So we try to celebrate the innovations, but also those lasting contributions. So it's always incredibly inspiring to be able to recognize the amazing people who make our industry great.
I love it. Yeah, I really do enjoy watching and reading about those people. I want to switch just a little bit over to something that is very important for me because I'm a small business. Sometimes it is hard to compete with the larger companies, especially as far as entrance, even to conferences, having a booth and that type of stuff. I believe somebody told me too that 60 to 70% of flight departments are small. They're below one or that only have one or two aircraft. Are there any initiatives or anything going on perhaps for the small businesses, not necessarily flight departments themselves, but maybe small businesses to help get them more involved, perhaps get through that cost financial barrier?
Yeah, we try to make a huge number of resources available to all of our members. And our dues are actually based on either number of aircraft or size of the company to reduce the burden in that way. But we also have special outreach where we focus on small operators, even owner operators, how you're using your aircraft, different tools that can be used to help make sure that you're able to take the experiences of the community, but be able to address it to yourselves to make things scalable. So whether we're doing flight manuals, management guides, those types of things to try to provide, these are some of the best practices, but here's how you can use it effectively for yourself. And we do webinars, we do different education systems. We will do things, through a lot of state organizations as well to try to bring things closer to you, like safety days, career fairs, and so forth. So we are very sensitive to the sensitivities that size and scale bring to the table. Our mission is to foster an environment that allows all of business aviation to thrive in the United States and around the world. And like so much in the United States, it's the small companies that are oftentimes right at the forefront of finding new innovations, new ways of doing business. And so we want to encourage that at every opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a couple of cool things that I know about. I'm sure it's just a fraction of what's out there, but there's a small flight department committee. You have an actual committee that's focused directly on small flight department. In fact, they at base, I got a chance to go, but they have a whole presentation. It's like a half day specifically geared towards small 1 and 2 aircraft operators. You also have access to some workers' comp insurance that is for some of them, like me, as small business, it's very difficult for me to get workers' comp insurance in the general market. So I'm able to go through NBAA and get that. So those are just 2 examples I thought I'd bring out that are helpful for small businesses.
Yeah, and we've got a very healthy dialogue for owner operators, single pilot type operations. In fact, we had a whole safety stand down at NBAA base. So there are a number of things we can do. We also have professional memberships and even student memberships for NBAA to provide other pathways to be able to access NBAA and be part of our membership.
That's really cool, that student access, because I kid you not, the first time when I went, I mean, it's probably been 20 some years that I've first went to base and schedulers and dispatchers. I had no idea what this whole industry was about. Like, I did not realize how big it was. And being able to go and see that, it showed me that there was also a ton of opportunities out there. Great for students.
And it also is a community that is willing to help each other. We've been fortunate at NBAA to be able to develop a mentor program, to create internships, to be able to make people aware that there are opportunities. What we have found is there are a lot of people that want to bring people into this industry to attract talent, to develop the talent, to retain that talent. And so you're not going to be alone when you come into business aviation.
Right? I agree. So many cool opportunities. I mean, the mentorship program is awesome. The other piece is scholarships. You have scholarships all throughout every single section of NBAA, your flight attendant, your maintenance, pilots, schedulers, and dispatchers. And those have really become, at least I've seen in the last 20, 25 years, is how robust those programs are. Like, it might have been a couple $1,000s years ago. I think that I want to say that S&D is close to like $50,000 or $70,000. I need to check my math on that, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's incredible to hear stories of people who their lives were changed because of an internship or a mentor or a scholarship or a conference, and just that ability to have such an impact. I had an opportunity to fly the other day with a woman who's leading a safety organization. And, she said she was at college at Western Michigan. She went to a business aviation career day that was being sponsored by the Michigan Business Aviation Association. Met
Great
some
group
who encouraged her to get into business aviation. And she's leveraged scholarships from NBAA. She's been to conferences, and her career is very much on a fast track.
That is so great to hear. And I'll admit, I won a scholarship many years ago for international operations, and that moved me into doing international flight planning, which moved my career up. And I love it. But yeah, they can change lives, definitely. Even just going to a conference or having a mentor can change the trajectory of your career as well. It's all about networking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's nice to be in a community where networking is welcomed, it's encouraged, it's appreciated. People here, as we discussed earlier, they're very passionate, and they would like an opportunity to share that passion, to find people who are open to hearing about all the great, amazing experiences and opportunities that are available to them.
I hear that all the time too. People are like, reach out to me. Yes, if you need help, I will help you. I've had some really great people, help me along the way and give me some really good advice. So I guess that would be something that everybody should think about, is just go out and ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask for some help. Let's see. Next question that one of our other podcasts threw out there. What do you think our biggest struggle for aviation is these days? Is it talent shortage? Is it regulatory? What's our biggest struggle we're facing?
Well, I think one thing that's really important is for everybody in the world to recognize the benefits of aviation, that ability to bring people face to face, to connect every continent, every culture is really, really important. And the fact that we as an industry, particularly business aviation, are doing it with a commitment to net zero emissions is, throughout history, great countries, great civilizations have been built on transportation. And that ability to facilitate mobility, to do it safely, securely, and sustainably, is really something that has the profound ability to shape the world and its future for the better. And so helping people recognize the benefits of aviation and the commitment of aviation and how this kind of mobility can transform lives and can transform the future is really, really important. So making sure people know who we are, I think, is one of the really key things. And then from that, people can say, I can see why we would want laws and regulations and investment to try to facilitate this mobility, this safe, secure, sustainable mobility, and why I, as an individual, would want to make my life in this field. So I think helping people understand who we are, the benefits we create, our commitment to net zero emissions helps us set the table that this is a great industry and we can continue to do even more and even better, you'll want to be a part of it is really key.
That's so awesome. And I can really identify with that because when I first came into aviation, the flight department I worked with was almost hidden. And I think that that's changing. Originally, people wanted to hide that flight department because they were kind of afraid that people would think about it spending too much money. But the more public we can get into understanding how important this industry is, the less we have to hide these flight departments. And I do actually, I rarely see people hiding the flight departments anymore. They're usually really part of the main core business now, but that's definitely been a change.
Yeah, Lindsay, we did and continue to do profiles of companies where they're able to demonstrate that their success has been because of the airplane, not the airplane because of their success. And I remember we interviewed Fred Smith, the legendary founder of FedEx, and Smith has a military background, a Marine who served a couple of tours of duty. And he said he thinks of the company's business aircraft as a force multiplier. It allows them to do more with less. They can visit, 3 cities in one day instead of one city in 3 days. They can move people, parts. They can turn the travel time into productive work time. Yeah. So these are some of the benefits. And we've, through the years, been able to take and do studies that show 2 companies in the same industry, one that uses business aviation, one that doesn't. And there are almost no exceptions that the company that outperforms in any industry is the company that relies on business aviation, because they can be more efficient, they can be more productive, and that's really the key. We found this in U.S. companies, large companies, small companies, growing economies, shrinking economies, national, international. It's something that most great companies have in common. If you look at what are the top performing companies, large, small, international, domestic, 90% of them will be relying on business aviation to meet some portion of their transportation challenges.
That is so cool and really good to highlight. Yeah, so there's actual data on how business aviation is helping. Yeah, so cool. Well, Ed, I'd like to kind of switch over, maybe less technical and maybe more on the personal side of it. Are there any really good books that you've been reading lately that you might suggest to our listeners?
A lot of times I read biographies. I'm absolutely fascinated by those. And a couple of recent ones. Of course, there's been a recent book that has come out on Elon Musk, another Freed. I've been, fortunate to read a recent biography on the former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. There's, I'm particularly interested in people. And so I tend to gravitate to those, but I just finished last night a book called Horse, the novel, which at first I thought was just a novel. Then I recognized it was historical fiction about one of the greatest racehorses of all time, who actually, had once been on exhibit at the Smithsonian, but then was put in an attic. So sometimes the history is interesting, whether it's of people or places, but I find history fascinating. Especially historical fiction can sometimes even add more to that.
That's so cool. Okay, I'm a big horse person and maybe not so big into horse racing, but what was it? Was it like Man of War or Secretariat or?
No, I'd never heard of the horse was actually called Lexington, named.
Okay.
Anyway, the horse was in 7 races, won 6 of them, including a major race called the Race Against Time, where the horse ran against a stopwatch. Interestingly enough, the horse had a genetic issue where it went blind, couldn't race, but ended up being the most successful sire of all time. That it had a horse named Preakness that they named the race after, had a progeny that ended up winning the initial Kentucky Derby, multiple Belmont Stakes, and I'd never heard of the horse. But if you like horses and enjoyed Seabiscuit and
Yep.
books and stories on horses, add Horse, a novel, to your reading list.
I definitely will. Yes, I love horses, but have never heard of Lexington either. I will definitely look that one up. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy talking or listening to this podcast. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Lindsay, thanks for the opportunity. It was great to be with you.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.